thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. Well, I didn't think that
Of
you wouldn't,
course.
but because I've attended quite a few of the separations training, so I've seen you there, and I've heard of, application specialists or application scientists, but never really quite understood what it actually is. So I was wondering if you could just, okay, first, okay, you did already introduce yourself, but just, describe what actually is your role, and also
Yeah.
how did you, because I see you were studying and then I see you worked as a lab manager and quality assurance. So I was wondering, how did you get into your current work from that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So as I said, like, honors Natasha and masters Natasha believe that academia is your only option. But after masters, I needed a bit of a break. So my honors and my masters was in genetics. My honors focused on a little shrimp species, which they found in the Western Cape, actually in Stellenbosch, and they're not supposed to be in the Western Cape. So we essentially did genetic characterization and determined exactly where these came from. And then my master's was also in the sea animals. So I'm sure you're aware of scallops. They're like quite a delicacy, especially in the US. Not really something that us as South Africans eat. But South Africa actually has an endemic scallop species. And the Department of Agriculture, Forestries, or Fisheries, or whatever it's called now, because it keeps changing its name, decided, following on the success of the abalone market in South Africa, they'd like to follow a similar route with the scallop species. But they had learned their lessons with the abalone. I don't know if you know much about abalone and the production thereof, but essentially they destroyed the genetic diversity of the species. So now the abalone that are being cultured are really challenged. As soon as there's any sort of infection, anything, it pretty much wipes out the whole population. So they realize they need to keep an eye on the genetics if they're going to go ahead with this, the production for export. So my master's thesis was essentially to develop those genetic markers. So we had some trouble finding them initially, which didn't go down so well for the production side of things. But yeah, essentially just develop genetic markers using microsatellite markers, but then also next generation sequencing. It was really, really interesting, but quite a challenging project. Lots of pivoting because of issues in the lab and all sorts. So after my master's, I decided I needed a little bit of a break. So I then decided to move to the medical side of things. So I worked as a lab manager in a group called CLIMB. They focused on TB diagnostics, and then specifically my interest was the microbiome in TB infection. And then I realized I wanted to do my PhD, but I was not as passionate about TB as I sort of hoped. I don't know if you have ever worked in a BSL-3, but it's not the most, the nicest thing, getting dolled up in all your safety gear, and it's all hot, and yeah, it was just not quite working for me. And I was really passionate about the microbiome, but wanted something a little bit more tangible. So then I decided to start my PhD, which was actually in psychiatry. So people think I'm a psychiatrist, and they go, "Oh, my mom has," and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I can't help you there. I'm sorry." But essentially, we looked at the role of the microbiome in brain development, specifically in infants who are exposed to alcohol prenatally, and who some went on to develop fetal alcohol spectrum disorders and others didn't. So it was really a niche market, niche study, first in the world, looking at the microbiome in fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which was very exciting. But because you become accustomed to a salary, I couldn't quite get to the point where I could completely let go working. So I did also work whilst doing my PhD. So I did lab management and then also some quality assurance, but obviously in an academic setting. And then I had a meeting with the Center for Proteomic and Genomic Research here in Cape Town, and they said no, they'd like to hire me, and I was like, for what position? And they're like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. So I worked there for 8 months, initially part-time, and then for a bit up the research and development side of things. But that's where I really, I always had sort of been exposed to application specialists, especially in my PhD. I was very fortunate to get really good funding from the NRF and MRC to fund my own PhD. We also worked with Illumina to develop a new sequencing method on the little baby iSeq 100. So that really did sort of expose me to the field of application specialists work, and I was getting a bit more disenchanted with academia and how you have to you have to start specializing, and that does get a bit stressful. I like doing many things. I'm not a focus into one sort of field of interest. So the opportunity came around. I applied for a job, an application specialist job with Diagnostic, which is another company that has a couple of application specialists. And then this opportunity at Separations came around. And to me, it really allows me, I'm very passionate about teaching and training. And I was getting to do less and less than that in the lab. So this gives me the opportunity to really do that a lot, which is great. What do I do? It's a very good question. Every day is very, very different. But essentially what an application specialist does is they support the sales team on the sales side if they need technical assistance, and then the customers is our main focus. So we want to ensure that anything that gets sold to a customer works and the customer's happy, and so that could be literally a kit or an enzyme, all the way through to a big instrumentation. So we make sure that the customer's getting what they want and what they need, and then when they do get it, that they're trained to use it. And then if there are any issues down the line, we assist with that. So I mean, I support a large number of suppliers, but the main ones are Machinagel, which is a really good nucleic acid isolation supplier, Takara, who provide enzymes, so for PCR and real-time PCR cloning sorts, and then the big one is also Illumina. So for all of those, for Emin and Takara, if a customer purchases a kit or an enzyme, it comes with my assistance, so be that online via email or WhatsApp. But actually more and more people are taking us up in person. So then we'll literally just be there the first time that they use the kit. We'll tweak the kit because not all samples are exactly the same. So, it says put 20 milligrams of tissue and you're like, okay, my tissue is weird. I can't measure it. My tissue is really blood. It's not all exactly the same. So we can help tweak the protocol so that it works to the best that it can, and that the customer's comfortable. And then with the Illumina, obviously every time we sell an instrument, it comes with training, both instrument training and library preparation training. And then every time a customer is starting a new new project, if they do feel they need additional training, we do offer that. So for Emin and Takara, I support the Western Cape, Eastern Cape and KZN, and I have a colleague up in Joburg that supports the rest of the country. And then for Illumina, I support our entire export, which is a number of different countries. I probably should have double checked which countries, but it's a lot. So it's mainly like sort of Southern Africa, but not all of trees. And then also Free State University specifically. Don't ask me why. I have literally only one in South Africa, but that's how it worked out. Yes. But shooting. So like today, University of the Free State had a run that just stalled. It's just stuck, not even halfway through the run. So then I will log in, have a look, and then log a case to tech support if I'm not quite sure. So yeah, that's I think pretty much in a nutshell what I do.
But now I'm wondering, like, do you travel a lot for your work? And like,
Yeah.
how much of that takes up your work day?
A lot. I did the maths quite recently. I've done since the end of January till the end of July. I did 11 trips, and that was 29 nights away from home. So it is quite a significant portion of traveling, because we support customers all over. So I'm based in Cape Town, so obviously it's really easy for me to support my customers here. But then I also have customers in the East Cape and KZN and Free State, and then obviously all of the export customers, and those are quite significant travels. So yeah, it is a lot of traveling, which can get a bit draining, I'm not gonna lie. Initially when I started, I was like, oh, this is so, I'm going to travel so much. And I do like having the opportunity to see different places and meet different people and different experiences, but nothing beats your own bed. So yeah, it can be a bit draining, and it definitely is something that is common to the job. It's not just my position. So it is something that if you aren't really able to travel, or it's not something that you like, that I would say maybe consider something else.
So that was also another one of my questions, is like the sort of work-life balance. I mean, you said how now you walk your cat every evening.
So it really does depend. At the moment, our manager is on maternity leave. Last week she gave birth to we obviously have to share her load, so it is busier than usual, and obviously the time of the year also depends. So I was traveling like crazy at the beginning of the year, when people are starting up projects, getting going, and then I didn't travel at all in August, which was quite a change. So it really does depend on the day. I do work some nights, I'm not going to lie, but to me it's really important that the customers are happy. So if I know there's stuff outstanding for them, then I'll work late. But I do try my best to sort of maintain a work-life balance, and my cat really does assist me in that. It's at 5 o'clock, pretty much on the dot, she sits at the gate waiting for me. So that definitely does help, especially in winter when the sun goes down at like 6. Then you have to get it done then. But yeah, as summer comes around, that might push a little late.
Opportunities for like professional development, either externally or promotions in your job or that sort of thing.
So I mean, to be an application specialist, I think most of the jobs require at least a master's. And what really is important, I mean, I might have a PhD, but I'm always a fan of Google. You can Google most things. But you really need, for this job, you really need a lot of hands-on experience in a lot of different applications. So that's what I really appreciated about my honors and masters. You know, as much as I was interested in the human genetics, moving to the animal genetics, I was really able to develop a lot of different skills in the lab. And that's really what you need as an application specialist. So we do have to come in with a lot of hands-on knowledge and experience in various different techniques. But we do have lots of training, less so for the extractions and the PCRs, because it's relatively common nowadays, quite a common thing to do. But for instance, with the Illumina, with the NGS, we have to be certified to be able to support our customers and to train our customers. So that is quite an extensive training. So we have lots of online training, and then we also have hands-on training. Every single instrument that we support, we have to be trained on hands-on. So for instance, earlier this year, I went to India for training. I was been to Dubai for training. So there's lots of opportunities to learn more. Growth, there's not really too much of a ladder. You know, I know a lot of professions have quite a sort of ladder from junior to senior. Essentially, in our setting, we have field application scientists or specialists, then we have senior field application specialists or scientists, and then we have a team leader. So there's not huge amount. Fortunately, compensation is adjusted every year, which is always great. No, thankfully not. Thankfully not. Don't need, as I said, most application specialist positions require masters, and then hands-on experience in as many applications as possible, but no professional registrations.
Okay, you did mention, you know, lab experience is important, but any other skills you think are important or advice for anyone looking to work in the field?
I mean, I think in general, I think the job market is really tough at the moment. And I always recommend to students, you know, there are so many people leaving with degrees, and nowadays you really have to set yourself apart from the rest of the field. And I think one way to do that, and I know it's painful, is like vacation work and internships. I'm not a fan of unpaid internships, because people deserve to get paid for their work. But in reality, many labs cannot afford to pay interns. And if you're going to do a short internship, I think, and you can afford to not be paid, it's a really good opportunity to build your experience, different applications that you're familiar with, and just build up that CV a bit. And it really does set you apart. So reach out to people. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it is becoming more about who you know, not what you know. So, you know, reach out to people. Most people will be willing to help. If they're not, maybe it's best that you ignore them anyway.
Do you, like, in the company, is it normally the special, okay, well, it's called a specialist, but are you normally specialized in an area like molecular, or what are some of the other areas?
So, I mean, it depends on the company. So Separations has a huge portfolio. So we have various different groups of application specialists. So we obviously have the molecular. So we do all the molecular, MN, Takara, like sampling, Illumina, everything. Then we have automation. So this is mainly with Hamilton Robotics. So it's the big fancy lab robots. I bought one back in academia. They're super cool. So that there we have, I think, 4 application specialists. So they again do exactly what we do, but with them they only really focus on Hamilton, and it's a lot of scripting. So it's not quite bioinformatics, but it's scripting. It's a little bit easier than sort of your usual Linux interface, but it's some quite complicated, deck handling. You've got to program the robot to do its little movements, pick things up, suck up. And then we also have a big portfolio on chromatography. So we have analytical, they call them analytical application specialists. So they focus on the chromatography side of things. And then we also have a really big division of essentially very fancy microscopes. I did not realize microscopes could get so fancy. So we also have optical or optics application specialists who focus on the optics side of things. So quite a variety as well, which is quite cool. And then obviously we also have, to complement all of those, we have field service engineers who will do the actual fixing of the instrument.
Oh, okay. Well, Separations itself they offer training, obviously. But are there any other resources or organizations that you recommend for learning?
Yeah, so Separations has quite a newly formed training academy. So as you know, we have various online trainings. Those are all free of charge, but then we also have hands-on trainings. Either in Cape Town, we use the Center for Epidemiological Research, so CERI, we use their lab spaces, or up in Joburg, we use ours. But there are lots of training opportunities out there. One that I always recommend people follow is Diplomics. They're based at the CPGR here in Cape Town, but they fund a lot of training all over the country, mainly hands-on, but they do have some web-based stuff as well. Thermo Fisher, I know they have an online platform. It depends on what you want to do. I mean, there are some really good opportunities if you want to do, for instance, GCP, GCLP, health and safety, that sort of thing. There's the Global Health Network. But I always find, as I said, Google's your friend. As long as it's free or cheapish, I feel like it's worth a try. But I think you'd be surprised at how many people are willing to provide training. So I think if you are, especially if people are at student level, as I said, those internships or even just short, like 2-3 day sessions, people are quite willing to do that. So there's lots of opportunities out there, but the online, Google is your friend.
And the society that you're part of?
Yeah, so I'm on the South African Genetics Society Executive Committee. So obviously they sort of serve the genetics community within South Africa. So I mean, we don't currently have any sort of massive opportunities. It's mainly a conference every 2 years, but it is something that we're looking at doing. Having more networking sessions for people to build their network, and then also training opportunities. So follow them on social media. I'm the communications manager. I'm not a very good communications manager, but follow them on social media, and when there is stuff, it'll be shared there. Take-home messages is essentially, if you're battling, ask. I mean, I think people are in general a lot friendlier than we think, and the worst they can do is say no. So if you're wanting to expand your horizons and you're not quite managing to do it on your own, just ask someone that you feel might be able to assist.
Mm.